How much control does Obama have over the modern Democratic Party?
He's the most influential person in the Democratic Party today. But I would say that his influence wanes as the years go by. He's not as influential now as he was 4 years ago. Times change, new people come in. The thing about him is he's got a fundamental left-wing ideology, but he's a lot more practical than that. He's all about just winning for himself. And, I think about when he ran for president in 2008, he supported a border wall.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was practical politics at that time. He was willing to ditch that right away. I would say as time goes by, his influence will wane, but probably 4 years from now, he'll probably still be the most influential Democrat.
Barack Obama wasn't simply a president, he was a phenomenon. Wherever he turned his attention, the world watched with awe. His legacy glimmers like a delicate bubble eye catching, fragile, and moments away from popping, held together by charm, eloquence, and nonstop praise from the press. He spoke of transformation, yet now echoes the same narratives like reused campaign slogans. Behind the captivating speeches and picture-perfect smiles is a maze of inconsistencies dressed up as accomplishments. Tucker Carlson has begun to peel back that polished image, and the reality behind it isn't nearly as flattering.
Amazing thing is that Barack Obama, I was there. I knew Obama. He ran against all that stuff.
Yeah, he did.
Right? Iraq was the bad war. Afghanistan was the good war. And he ran a campaign against that. But he ended up throwing into prison the guy who told the truth about it.
The latest controversy surrounding the former president feels like a recycled soap opera, messy, over the top, and packed with the same tired plot twists. There are smug grins, a tangle of mixed messages complicated enough to scramble a Rubik's Cube, and of course the familiar whispers of Russian involvement. So, who's stepping up to challenge the narrative? Tucker Carlson, armed with a pile of evidence, a no-nonsense glare, and razor-sharp sarcasm that slices through the spin like a blade through metal.
Now that he's a Netflix producer, along with his hate-addled wife, Michelle, he's producing more racial division. The latest is called Leave the World Behind. It's a fictional thriller about the collapse of technology and what humans would do with no phones or computers. The movie follows a family on vacation at a rental house, and one night they're visited by a father and a daughter who show up seeking shelter. They say their phones no longer work and they need a place to stay. So immediately the white family, because they're evil, that's encoded in their DNA of course, is suspicious of the visitors because they're black. And it goes on and on and on like this. Here's a clip.
I'm asking for you to remember that if the world falls apart, trust should not be doled out easily to anyone, especially white people.
Can't trust white people. They're evil. This is the guy, remember, who became famous at the Democratic Convention in 2004 by telling us there is no white America, there's no black America, it's just one America. But of course, that's not really a profit model in politics, is it? So he's been stoking race hatred ever since, and the disarray around us is the result.
Once hailed as the post-racial hero of a new America, Obama has quietly shifted into the role of behind-the-scenes operator in the nation's political theater. He stays mostly out of sight, occasionally surfacing with vague, self-congratulatory remarks, while the real chaos unfolds under someone else's spotlight. But Tucker Carlson isn't one to overlook questionable behavior. With all the subtlety of a chainsaw, he rips back the curtain to reveal what's really going on.
Between 1917 and the election of Barack Obama, 3 Americans were charged with espionage for speaking to the press. Under Barack Obama, 8 people, almost 3 times all previous presidents combined, were charged with espionage for speaking to the press. 3 times.
And none of them was charged with lying.
Not a single one of them.
Because lying is not a crime.
That's right.
Telling the truth is a crime. That's all you need to know. You can't support a system in which telling the truth is a crime and lying is rewarded.
Let's begin with the recycled narrative of Russian interference. For 4 years, the media couldn't get enough of the alleged Trump-Russia ties, clinging to the story like it was gospel until it collapsed faster than a Jenga tower in a quake. Meanwhile, Obama's own links have been lurking just beneath the surface, much like an enormous carp waiting in murky water. But this one reeks not of fish, but of pride marinated in dishonesty.
Between 1917 and the election of Barack Obama, 3 Americans were charged with espionage for speaking to the press. Under Barack Obama, 8 people, almost 3 times all previous presidents combined, were charged with espionage for speaking to the press. 3 times.
And none of them was charged with lying.
Not a single one of them.
Because lying is not a crime.
That's right.
Telling the truth is a crime. That's all you need to know. You can't support a system in which telling the truth is a crime and lying is rewarded.
Tucker doesn't need wild conspiracies to make his point. He just follows the evidence wherever it leads. Take those off-the-record gatherings with top European and foreign intelligence figures, or those oddly timed post-presidency trips that seem to align perfectly with rising global tensions. Then there are the hush-hush meetings with powerful elites, mysteriously followed by a sudden wave of pro-Obama media coverage. Tucker lays it all out like a Thanksgiving turkey, only this one's overflowing with stuffing and served with some serious scorch marks. Next up is the legacy itself. Once praised as a masterful speaker, Obama now looms over the current administration like an overbearing backseat driver, constantly pressing an imaginary brake pedal. Though he left office 8 years ago, it often feels like he never stopped campaigning. According to Tucker, Obama's current leadership involves directing crises from a luxurious beachside mansion while lecturing everyday Americans about reducing their carbon footprints. Remember the healthcare debacle? While millions struggled with higher premiums and fewer options, Obama was busy stamping his name on a system that turned into the bureaucratic nightmare equivalent of a never-ending DMV line. Tucker digs deep into the tangle of red tape and broken promises, sniffing out every costly flaw like a determined bloodhound, one that's not letting go. And let's not forget the surveillance drama. Tucker treats Obama's track record on spying like a collector's mug, except this one comes printed with the faces of journalists and political opponents. All done, of course, in the name of national security. Because what better way to promote transparency than quietly monitoring citizens and brushing it off as just another harmless clerical error?
Hirsch piece. Here's the cliff notes. Obama colludes with Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer. Sunday morning calls Biden and says, you're done. Kamala's gonna 25th Amendment you, and you gotta step aside.
And who places the call?
Obama.
Obama does. Okay.
So Obama calls the sitting president and tells him, you're done. Then tells Kamala Harris, you're gonna be the nominee, but if you don't gain traction, if you're not popular, we're gonna take you out too. I mean, it's all shocking.
The media adored him, and many still do. But Tucker Carlson is like the uninvited guest who crashes the fan club banquet, megaphone in hand and loaded with uncomfortable truths. He highlights how Obama cultivated an image of elitism, where sipping imported wine and spouting vague philosophy replaced genuine leadership and accountability. Then there's the book deals, the Netflix collaborations, and a brand of activism so curated it could be straight off an influencer's Pinterest board. Obama's foreign policy, in Tucker's view, reads like a masterclass in polished indifference. From diplomatic blunders to drone strike tragedies, Tucker has repeatedly called out the cold detachment that somehow earned Obama a Nobel Peace Prize. Grand speeches echoed while the Middle East blazed like a finale of July 4th fireworks. But Tucker isn't dazzled by glossy surfaces. He exposes how Obama's administration laid the groundwork for sweeping censorship and tech overreach, often cloaked in the language of progress. Handing over your privacy under the guise of innovation is one thing, but doing so to someone who recently suggested surveillance for your own good? That's not just unsettling, it's calculated. And unless you're living in Obama's version of America, it doesn't have to be inevitable.
Did you see the video of Biden at the debate in 2007 announcing that Barack Obama had an AIDS test?
I know Barack got tested for AIDS.
It's the funniest video ever. Biden said, well, I think, AIDS is a real problem in the African-American community.
And the community's engaged in denial.
And I think we should all get AIDS tests. I mean, Barack Obama had an AIDS test.
I know Barack got tested for AIDS.
There's a cutaway of Obama being like, I hate you.
It's an important thing.
Then Biden's like, which is totally good. And I think he's negative, but I mean, all men should get an AIDS.
There's no shame in being tested for AIDS.
Now let's turn to the cultural clashes that intensified under Obama's watch. When he delivered his early commencement speeches, the nation was already slipping into deep ideological divides. Tucker Carlson didn't start the fire, but he's now pointing to the sparks, those subtle nods and quiet cues Obama gave to identity politics, as key accelerants. Obama might have handed out marshmallows at the door, but he certainly didn't stop the blaze from spreading. Then there's the latest twist in the saga, the ever-recurring Russia story. While diplomats pointed fingers at Trump, accusing him of being too cozy with Putin, Obama's name kept surfacing in the background like an awkward refrain. Tucker makes it clear, Obama wasn't secretly penning love notes to the Kremlin. Instead, his interests and influence always seemed to align with outcomes that curiously benefited everyone except the American people. And then comes the arrogance, the kind that wraps itself in a practiced smile, the kind that seems to whisper, I know more than you. But beneath that calm delivery and sleepy charm, Tucker argues, lies a string of overused slogans and not much substance. Obama comes off, in his view, as the kind of man who'd want his name etched into bathroom mirrors just to be admired more often. What followed after the presidency was a full-blown glow-up. Lavish vacations, red carpet hangouts, and book tours that sound like personal confessions minus the part where anything real is admitted. But don't mistake Tucker's tone for bitterness. He laughs at the irony. Nothing screams everyman quite like having a personal chef tweet about injustice while lounging on a private island. And to be clear, this isn't just cynicism. Tucker says it with the weight of someone who's watched Obama's every move for 8 long years.
It's disgusting.
Yes, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Of course.
Right? Oh, I just drive like a shitty little Toyota. It's like, oh, actually, you're defrauding.
Michelle
millions of
Obama goes to
people.
Princeton for free and has been in the ruling class her whole life, and she's still lecturing you about how she's a victim of racism. Hillary Clinton, exact same thing. Goes to Wellesley, spends her entire life in the ruling class, and she's still whining about how she's discriminated against. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, you ever see pictures of Jimmy Carter's house
Yes.
and Obama's house? We would allow people who call themselves public servants to get to live in this insane
Tucker brings the whole picture to life like the unsettling presence of a villain in a horror movie, calm, composed, but unmistakably disturbing. The story is still murky, riddled with lingering questions and a trail of public funds that seem to vanish without explanation. Tucker compares it to politely thanking a pickpocket after handing over your wallet, civil on the surface, but absurd underneath. His takedown doesn't rely on theatrics. It's a quiet demolition, popping the inflated legacy with precision. The result is a messy splash of PR spin and flowery speeches left floating in the aftermath. There's no need to shout. Tucker simply lifts an eyebrow or gestures, allowing Obama's contradictions to speak louder than any accusation ever could. What's truly astonishing, he argues, is how someone can claim to have redefined leadership while building a legacy almost entirely on speeches and beachfront photo ops. And if the highlight of your policy achievements is a healthcare plan so complex its own architects struggle to explain it, maybe the bar for greatness wasn't that high to begin with. But it doesn't stop at policy, it evolves into something bigger. The performance gains momentum, arms, legs, and a streaming contract. Because apparently the peak of visionary governance now involves producing clunky documentaries with Hollywood, pretending to solve crises their own decisions helped ignite. And then there's Russia. Once mocking Cold War paranoia, Obama now finds himself tangled in enough rumors and backdoor dealings to make even a Bond villain nervous. But instead of a clear denial, it turns into a strange sort of victory lap. That same suspicion having secret lines to the Kremlin is no longer a scandal. It's treated like a bizarre badge of honor. And that, Tucker says, is what really caught his attention.
Really struck me. He was talking about the drone program. He killed 10 times more people with drones than George W. Bush did. And he said, I never realized I would be so good at killing people.
He's a cold human being.
Like, what is that? That's
Sick.
sociopathy.
Yeah, well, for sure.
You have to be a sociopath to even think that way.
Yes.
But he surrounded himself with other sociopaths.
The media eats it up like it's a gourmet truth served on a silver platter. But what they're really feeding on is a spectacle. A circus with Barack as both the ringmaster and the juggler, only he's tossing around contradictions, not bowling pins. Pretending to stand above it all while turning intelligence agencies into pawns isn't leadership. It's manipulation, dressed in a tuxedo and smiling for the cameras. He moved through scandals like a magician pulling off vanishing acts. Yet the one thing that never disappeared was the demand for accountability. Just when it seems like he's finally stepped away from the spotlight, his oversized ego pulls him right back in gravity and all. He reappears like an uninvited guest crashing a party, playing the role of the charming professor who won't stop lecturing. He spins narratives hoping charisma will substitute for character. But behind the speeches and tailored suits lies a legacy built on storytelling. What remains is a loop of recycled messages, an echo bouncing off the walls of his own reflection, one he refuses to see clearly. As the illusion fades, all that's left is a man unwilling to admit the mirror lied to him. And here's the kicker, this isn't the end. Not even close. Obama's presidency was a masterclass in image over impact, from the imaginary red lines in Syria to the real red carpets of Hollywood. Appearance always seemed to trump accountability. Tucker doesn't just point it out, he frames it like a display in a museum titled How to Say Everything While Doing Absolutely Nothing.
I remember Hunter Biden, who was my neighbor for many years, telling me more than once, when Biden was vice president, how much they despised Barack Obama. He despised Barack Obama.
Well, what he did to Joe Biden in 2016 to say, we're going with Hillary Clinton. That and the Biden family, that's as bad as it gets. That's as treacherous as it gets. And then in 2020, he didn't really support him until he had to, when it was just him.
According to the latest whispers, Obama was right there at the elite cocktail hour where power and partnerships were traded as casually as small talk, and everyone else's ideas of collaboration were reduced to little more than political fan fiction. Tucker Carlson dives into the mess with glee, mapping timelines, highlighting suspicious overlaps, and slyly pointing out that these connections run far deeper than anyone's willing to admit. Then there's Obama's inner circle, a rotating cast of Silicon Valley gatekeepers and Ivy League elites who genuinely seem to believe that greatness could be achieved through TED Talks and buzzwords. Tucker pulls no punches when it comes to calling them out. These polished dreamers, he scoffs, couldn't even run a lemonade stand without forming a committee, hiring a brand consultant, and launching a podcast first.
Why would Barack Obama, and I'm sorry to be cynical, but I spent, all 8 years of his presidency in the United States watching carefully. Why would he tweet out like, it's a great thing that it's going to take days to find out who the new president is. Election workers are heroes, respect them, thank them. Don't share things before checking your sources. I'm trying not to use the F word on YouTube, but like, how dare you, Barack Obama, you liar, lecture me about accuracy, and then let the process run its course. It takes time to count every ballot. Well, not in India.
Tucker Carlson has carved out a role not just as a commentator, but as a relentless reminder urging Americans to look beyond Barack Obama's calm delivery and signature smirk. Behind that composed facade, Tucker argues, is a man who mastered the illusion of control while outsourcing the real work like a CEO dialing in from a beach resort. His administration's domestic initiatives, which once promised progress, often ended in embarrassing disarray like a piano bouncing on a trampoline. From education reforms that favored union agendas over student outcomes, to environmental crusades that praised bike lanes while government SUVs blocked traffic, the contradictions piled high. Tucker zeroes in on these ironies with surgical precision. Gun control speeches wrapped in Secret Service security, climate advocacy from private jets, and carefully crafted policy messages that sounded more like slogans than solutions. It's all part of a larger pattern. He says a presidency run on optics rather than outcomes. Obama's presence was sleek, his branding impeccable, but the substance beneath it cracked under scrutiny. Progress often felt like curated decay. His inner circle? A who's who of Silicon Valley influencers and Ivy League idealists who thought buzzwords could substitute for real-world solutions. As Tucker puts it, these folks couldn't run a lemonade stand without assembling a think tank, hiring a social media team, and scheduling a TED Talk. And while Obama smiled from golf courses and book tours, his policies moved the country through a glittering decline disguised as growth. So as the myth slowly unravels, Tucker's not stepping away, he's just getting warmed up. The slogans didn't pay rent, and the charisma didn't fix broken systems. This isn't the end, it's the intermission. There's more drama to come, more contradictions to expose, and Tucker is already waiting backstage, ready for the next act.
I'll just say it. I'm not surprised at all. I watched what happened in Rhodesia when it became Zimbabwe in 1980, and something identical happened. There was a lot of killing, and they drove it to the bottom rank of nations, the poorest country in the world. And following exactly the same script, I always thought that would happen in South Africa. I wanted to be wrong. Turns out I wasn't. What really bothers me is that the West has allowed this and cheered it on. Because I live in the West. I live in the United States. So I don't want to think that my leaders are for killing people on the basis of race, but watching how they've stood by and applauded, Barack Obama's applauded all this stuff. It tells you everything about Barack Obama.
I would love to.
Not allowed to talk about Obama?
Not if you don't follow the narrative. If I had said, listen, I grew up in a biracial household, but I'm a black woman, I would probably still have a job.
But I just think it's, maybe I'm overthinking or perhaps underthinking it, but it does seem very strange. Like, I thought the whole point of the melting pot idea was that we're all people inside, and that the left is certainly not against people of different races getting together and having